Welcome back, everybody. Our next presenter is David Sereda. I don't know how many of you know David. He's a pretty public figure at this point, but he had his first UFO sighting at the old age of 7 years old. But when he grew up, he went on to become a space scientist with a bent toward human consciousness and spirituality. David has been public in the UFO field and the UFO connections to all of this since about 2000. In 1993, he did address Congress on nuclear fusion. But most of all, David is a man with a heart about this big, a pure heart. And right now, his concern and his effort is focused on ways to save the planet, and most especially ways to save all of us. Please welcome David Sereda.
Am I plugged in? I'm plugged in. Well, I wanted to start by saying thank you for all of you to lend your minds and your ears, and it's like being in UFO University here. You know, for 7 days you're taking all these courses, and they're really long, and you guys have this incredible ability to have such a long attention span and focus on very concentrated work. And I wish we could abduct all the members of Obama's Congress and make them come to the UFO Congress for the full week, and then they'll know the truth. And thank you, Bob, and your family for having me here this year. It's really an honor. This is my favorite convention. Well, my talk today is about reverse engineer, the truth about alien technology. And the significance of this technology, to me, is having been an ecologist for over 25 years and personally planted over 1.25 million trees myself in springs and summers for 22 years in British Columbia. I also worked in nuclear fusion for 10 years, and I was around Nobel Prize winners like Murray Gell-Mann, Glenn Seaborg, who chaired the Atomic Energy Commission. And we were working towards the goal of environmentally clean fusion energy and had huge barriers at the congressional level. Even despite signatures from dozens of Nobel Prize winners, we couldn't complete the project and get all the funding. And so that all ended. I went on to bomb detection, landmine and bomb detection for Department of Defense, and before 9/11. And so I got a lot of experience in the field of physics detection. And meanwhile, in the background, I spent 6 years talking to NASA's top scientists. I got to know a lot of them through my various jobs and had a dialogue with them about UFOs. In fact, where I saw my first UFO at Berkeley in 1968, I was 7 years old. And let's just fast forward here to what I looked like at 7. Where am I here? There I am. And what happened as I was walking home from school is there's this flying saucer, and there's a pandemonium of excitement. People were pointing up at the sky and looking at this thing. And what happened to me that day was that, after watching this thing for a full 20 minutes, and it looked like the Billy Meyer ship, if all of you know what Billy Meyer felt. It was down low near the campus. This was the time during the riots, the big movements against Vietnam. And my father was getting his PhD in psychology. And right up on the hill, unbeknownst to me, was Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, where decades later I would have lunch with Glenn Seaborg, who chaired the Atomic Energy Commission under Kennedy, Johnson, and Nixon, and tell him that I saw a flying saucer there. So we had some discussions about it. So, cameras back then were better than digital cameras today. There are a lot of qualities in these old cameras. So what I want to start with now is I actually ended up quite recently scouring the many 2,700 pages of the FBI FOIA Real X files under J. Edgar Hoover, and I found something I don't know how many people were aware of, but many children were test flying toy flying saucers that were using anti-gravity on July the 8th and the 9th of 1947, the same day as the Roswell crash. And these saucers really flew. So let's play video clip number 1, please.
Trevor James Constable, a New Zealand
naval radar operator in World War II, was the pioneer of invisible photography. In the 1950s in California, Trevor took these amazing photographs of UFOs over Landers, Giant Rock, California, where George Van Tassel was channeling extraterrestrials. The photos are so stunning to me because they show translucent discs of light, UFOs with dark holes in the center, identical to the NASA STS-75 UFOs from the space shuttle in 1996, in February 1996. So we have the same UFOs confirmed from two different sources over 40 years apart. So if you look at very closely what's going on, NASA is saying that these are pieces of debris floating right in front of the camera lens, and as they get in front of the lens, you get these fuzzy orbs of light called airy discs around them and giving the illusion they're UFOs. But if they were really that close to the camera, as NASA contends, how would they survive a long zoom? I did a very simple test with a digital camera, just like they're using. You hold a dime, which is bigger than any piece of dust you could find, and you hold it even a couple of inches or 6 inches in front of the camera. When you zoom in, you can't even see the dime. It disappears completely. And NASA's cameras zoom all the way in on the tether, which is 77 to 100 miles away from the camera, and the objects are still there. There's no way these are pieces of debris that are near the camera lens. There's no way, which confirms that they're actually as large as we say they are. They're passing behind the tether. The tether is 12 miles long. The UFOs are 2 to 3 miles wide in diameter, 1 to 3 miles in diameter, if they're right behind the tether. If they're further behind the tether than we think, they are much larger than that. And second, I confirmed with Dr. Joseph Newth III at NASA that NASA's video cameras can see into the near ultraviolet and the far ultraviolet, which is 2 bandwidths of ultraviolet, into the invisible spectrum where human eyes don't see. On July 9th, 1947, there was an incident in North Hollywood, in Hollywood, California, where people saw a flying saucer crash into this woman's yard and burst into flames. This is roughly the same time as the Roswell incident, which is roughly the week of July 7th through the 10th or the 9th of 1947. So a flying saucer crashes in Los Angeles. But what's amazing about the case, which is now listed under the Freedom of Information Act request on the FBI's website, this is a real case. What you're about to see are real photographs. They retrieved the flying saucer, and it's only 30 inches in diameter. 30 inches, and it's made of aluminum. And what really got my attention is that when you look at this thing, when they cut it in half and they opened it up, it's got a V-shaped notch and a black hole in the center. And if you look at the NASA STS-75 UFO, which I estimated 2 to 3 miles wide, it looks identically the same on the cameras. They can see into the invisible ultraviolet. You can see a dark hole in the center, you can see these strobing waves coming out of it, and you can see this notch cut out of the side of it. I mean, it's really quite remarkable. But when we actually look at what was found inside the craft, when we read the actual FBI documents, it says on the evening of July the 9th, 1947, a report was received in the Los Angeles office that a so-called flying disc had landed in the vicinity of Radford and Magnolia Streets in North Hollywood, California, and described it as approximately 30 inches in diameter. It weighed about 22 pounds. And in fact, we even have the address here of where it crashed, 11858 Magnolia Boulevard, North Hollywood. I mean, this is a very detailed report. But when they took the flying saucer and they cut it in half, and you look at these photographs, they found that it had a radio tube mounted in the center. So this thing was producing some kind of a magnetic field or some kind of waves, and produced anti-gravity. And they claimed when the FBI actually researched this, a bunch of kids claimed that they were actually, it was an experiment. Kids, this is what they're claiming in this FBI report. I mean, 16 years old. This kid was 16 years old. He said he built this